Hello everybody out there, this is DLOTS64. I was bouncing a couple deck ideas off of Kevin at RogueDeckBuilder.com recently with M14 being completely spoiled, and he asked me if, well, he actually graciously offered to post this on his channel. This is going to be my top 10 cards for the upcoming set of M14, and I'm getting this done just in time for the pre-release coming up here at the end of the week. These are 10 cards that I'm really excited about. I haven't had a ton of time to look over the set, but from just, looking over it quickly and looking at some of the cards, these are the first 10 cards that popped out at me that I thought, boy, I'm going to be using these cards sometime down the road, or I think that these cards will have an impact on standard or other constructed formats, and also just cards that I think are going to be fun to try out, and maybe I don't necessarily know whether they're going to pan out and be in tier 1 decks, but just cards that I think will be fun. But these are going to be my top 10. I basically only play standard right now as far as constructed goes, because there's not a modern scene or legacy scene where I'm at, unfortunately. So most of my evaluations for constructed are going to be with standard. I'm also going to be talking about any type of impact they would have in cubing, because I do a lot of cubing. And then I would also like to talk about limited, because that's probably the most amount of Magic that I play is either draft or sealed events. So I'll be covering that as well. And then at the end I may also make some comments about financial speculation type things with these cards. But let's go ahead and get started. My number 10 card is Quicken. Unfortunately with M14 I think it's a really good set, but I think blue is really weak. I think it's the weakest color so far just looking over. There may be a card that I did miss in there, but I think there's the Sphinx that's mythic's kind of weak. Obviously Jace Memory Adept, we know that's a pretty solid card. But I'm not covering too many reprints, although Quicken is a reprint. I believe it was from Guild Pack. But the reason why I like this card is just being able to, for those that don't know, it's an instant and costs 1 blue, and it makes it so that your next sorcery card can be cast as though it had flash, but it also cantrips and draws you a card. Given sorcery's flash is always a powerful effect, and then this one also cantrips, or it cycles, so even if you have it in your hand and you don't necessarily have a target, you can cantrip it, maybe draw into one, or just, cycle it out while holding up your counter magic. So I think this is a really good control card, and standard right now, being able to Supreme Verdict at any time in Esper is really, really powerful. And then also another thing that I just thought of quickly with it is if a green and blue, maybe with another color in there, something like that, control deck becomes big, being able to Farseek on the opponent's end step is really good, and that's one of the major things that I could see Quicken being used with. I'm not sure how much play this got in standard the first time around. I did not play back then, but I've heard, I've had some people tell me that it was a very constructed playable card. I think it's going to be pretty good in standard. Again, though, this is just I looked down my list whenever I got to 9 and realized I didn't have any blue cards on here. So this is probably, I think, the best blue card for constructed anyways. It's decent in cube. I've actually seen it in some people's cubes. I don't know that I'll put it in my cube, but it's not a bad card to have in there. Limited, it's not really good though. There's really not too much use for it. I mean, if you're searching for a 23rd card, it's not bad because it does cantrip, but yeah, in most cases it's not going to be good in limited. As far as financially with this card, I don't think it's going to cost very much. I think it will be kind of a bulk rare type thing. Just it's not good in limited, so it's going to go late in drafts. It's going to be just a kind of a bulky rare. So if it comes out of the gates a little expensive because it's in a couple decks, I would hold off on it unless you're really looking to play Esper and it's in Esper. My 9th card is Chandra Pyromancer. I don't necessarily think this is a great card. It's just, again, a new Planeswalker card. Currently, one deck that is kind of tier 1-ish that I think it would fit in is it Blitz, the Nivik Cyclops deck. Just because its +1 ability helps force through damage, and in that deck, even just dealing 1 damage to an opponent is relevant. For those of you that don't know, the Chandra is 2 red and 2 colorless. Her first ability +1s her. I believe she has 4 loyalty. I'm not 100% on that. It may just be 3. But her first ability +1s, and it deals 1 damage to target player and 1 damage to a creature that player controls, up to 1 creature, and then that creature can't block. So it's going to be good and is a blitz, I think, maybe even as just a sideboard card. But its best ability, I think, is its 0 ability. Not necessarily for as a blitz, but it is good as well. It just allows you to exile the top card from your library. It's a 0 ability, so it's recurable. And then it's just like an extension of your hand for that turn. You can play it. You still have to pay the mana cost and everything, but if it's a land, you know, you can bring the land in. This is also good for Is It Blitz, because Is It Blitz has a ton of hand destruction spells where they're Faithless Looting or using their Is It Charm. And so one problem, I have played the deck a little bit, and one problem I found with the deck is just you destroy your own hand sometimes trying to find your combo pieces. So this is really going to help out. Unfortunately, I don't remember if you have to have the card face up or if it stays face down if your opponent knows, because I mean, that could be a problem with Is It Blitz. I'll have to check that out. And its ultimate, I don't think has any impact anywhere. It's, I think, -7, and you look at the top 10 cards. I'm not sure, I don't have it in front of me. And you can pick an instant or sorcery and copy it 3 times, I believe. But I didn't write it down. I don't think it has any impact anywhere. Especially like in Is It Blitz, the game's going to be over well before you can get, if you're, you know, forcing through damage with their +1 abilities 3 times to get to 7, you've probably already won. But in limited, it's obviously good. It's a planeswalker. It's first pick in most cases. It's just card advantage and a health sink, if nothing else. Just reoccurable card advantage, something your opponent has to deal with, or just basically get buried by the card advantage. But this card, the main reason I have on here is it's going to be interesting to see a reoccurring card advantage in red. I don't know, I think, and how it's going to do post-rotation. But, I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of things out there, if there is anything out there that has reoccurring card advantage and that's strictly in red. So that's why I put it on here. My number 8 would be Garruk, Caller of Beasts. Again, just another new planeswalker. Post-rotation might be alright. Right now, I think it's worse than Primal Hunter by quite a bit. But it's 6 mana, comes in with 4 loyalty. It's +1 ability, lets you look, I don't have it written down, but I think it's top 5 cards of your deck, and you can put any amount of creatures that you find there into your hand. It's -3 ability, allows you to put a green creature into play. And then it's -7 ability, I believe it's -7, its ultimate, gives you an emblem that anytime you cast a creature, you search your deck and find another creature and put it into play. I'm not sure if you put it into play or cast it, but again, in limited, this is a bomb. If you can support it, pick one for sure, and then you want to, you know, try to get as many creatures as you can. Not necessarily maybe a big creature, because if you can drop them on turn 6, if there's like a board stall, and you can just keep creating card advantage for yourself with its +1 ability, it's going to win you the game. Right now in Standard, though, I mean, it could make an impact right now because it's -3 ability with creatures like, say, like you could cast it on turns 5 and then -3 to play Thragtusk and get a lot of value out of that. Obviously, you'd leave it open for attacks maybe in that case, but with Thragtusk, you know, there's already so much value involved there that really won't matter. And then there's some other value creatures like, say, Prime Speaker Zagana that you could cheat into play with it. Well, not necessarily cheat, because you're already at 6 mana, but you know, you play him, you get him on board, and then also get your Prime Speaker on board and draw a ton of cards in one turn, or get him on board and throw down a Thragtusk, gain 5 life, and have a Thragtusk on board with Garruk ready to tick up next turn and maybe find a creature for you that turn. I think he's a little bit better than people are giving him credit for, and I think he's better than Chandra. That's probably not a very popular opinion. I think a lot of people think Garruk's kind of trashy, but in Cube, he's going to go right into my Cube. He's going to actually replace Primal Hunter. I don't think he's better than Primal Hunter in constructed play, especially in Standard right now, but he just can do so many fun things in a Cube that, I don't know, and I think he's more green than Primal Hunter. Just allowing you to cheat in a character early and then drawing your characters off the, or creatures, sorry, off the top of your deck. But again, in limited, he's a bomb. Both of these planeswalkers, whenever they come out, they're going to be expensive just because they're new planeswalkers, and they always are. I don't think that they'll maintain value, especially before rotation. I think eventually they'll settle down probably around $6, $7 a piece. So if you're interested in them and you don't pull them in a pack, I wouldn't go out and buy them like right at the pre-release. They'll probably be like 15 to 20, if not more. But I don't think they're going to hold their value. My number 7 card is I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but it's the Kalonian Tusker. For 2 green, you get a 3/3 vanilla. I think in standard right now, though, this card, I just like it. It's a very efficient card. It's green through and through. But in standard right now, it's probably going to have a minimal impact just because you can't cast it off Burning Tree, which would be the deck that would really want it. But it will be solid in any other heavy green decks, I think, so I wouldn't be surprised if it makes an impact in Constructed. But where I really think it shines in is it's going to go right on my cube. It fits right into aggressive green, like an aggressive green deck that I have that's draftable in my cube. I think it will be in a lot of people's cubes, not just mine. But I think it's fantastic in limited. It's close. It's a high pickable card. I don't know if I'd call it first pickable. It's not first pickable over something like Doomblade or Pacifism or Pacify. But it is. I think it's a very solid card. It's just a card that I like. It 3/3 for 2 green. It just seems right. My number 7 card is probably higher on a lot of people's list, but it's is that 7? No, it's my number 6, is Young Pyromancer. I know a lot of people are really looking forward to playing with this card. I think it's great value for a card. It might be a trap, though. It may be too slow. I'm not sure. Or the impact might not be as great as people think. It's a card that I definitely want to get and play with. I think it's going to be have a lot of really good combo potential. It's going to be a card I think that could be an all-star in like a red-white tokens deck or a black, red, white tokens deck. And there's another card in M14 that I think it combos really well with in a deck like that, but it's lower on my list. Well, actually higher on my list, but I'll get to that in just a few minutes here. For Cube, I don't know. I'm going to have to see how it plays in a limited environment before I decide whether I add it to mine or not. Currently, right now, I don't plan on putting it in. It's not a card that I'm really wanting to get immediately for my cube, but in the limited environment, I think it's fantastic. It's a 2/1 for red 1, and that's already decent enough. And then with the extra ability that's going to create advantage for you, board advantage, I just think it's a really good card. This is an uncommon, and along with the Tusker uncommon that I talked about previously, I think that these, maybe not Tusker, but Young Pyromancer is going to be one of the uncommons that pays for your pack early on anyways, and I think foils will be valuable. But early on, if you don't open them up in your packs, your draft packs, or your pre-release packs, he's probably going to cost you, anywhere from $15 to $20 for a play set of him. I think he'll be an expensive uncommon out the gate. I think he'll end up settling down, though. Maybe a $2 card, but the foils I think will go pretty well if he has as much impact on Constructed as I think he will. So early on, if you can get your hands on some foils, maybe from trade, people not valuing them so high, I think that would be a safe bet. But then we're going to move on to our number 5 card on the list, which is Xathrid Necromancer. For black 2, he's a 2/2 that anytime he or another human creature dies, he creates a 2/2 zombie token. I just think that this is valuable. Like, this is the value on this card is so big. In standard, possibly like an Esper human deck might come out. There's a ton of really good humans in those colors. And for Cube, he won't go into mine just because I don't have a human tribal, but any cube that has a human tribal element to it, I mean, I have a zombie tribal, goblins, and elves more than humans. There are some humans in my cube, but he probably won't make it into mine, but he's going to be really, really good in any cubes that do have a ton of humans. In limited, pick one. I mean, there isn't much I'd pick him over with, even just if he ends up being a 2/2 for 3 that brings a 2/2 in whenever he dies. That's great value in limited. Just an awesome card in limited. This card I believe is probably going to be pretty pricey, but if it does come out early, low, like less than $5, I would probably probably get your playset. I don't know, it may not be that expensive right out the gate, but I think right now it has a ton of synergy. Maybe after rotation it's not going to be so highly sought after, but early on I think it's going to find itself into some constructed standard decks anyways. My number 4 card is Ogre Battledriver. For 2 red and 2, you get a creature that's a 3/3, and other creatures that are coming into the battlefield get haste and +2/+0 for the turn. It's not better than Hellrider and standard in most cases, but there are some decks that it fits a lot better in, maybe not hyper aggressive because it itself doesn't have haste. But I've been brewing a lot of decks with this card, and that's why it's high on my list. I've been brewing with young Pyromancer, a red, white, black tokens deck that uses Lingering Souls and Assemble the Legion along with young Pyromancer. Because if you think about it, if you can get Ogre Battledriver out and cast the Lingering Souls, even without young Pyromancer on the board, you're creating 2 3/1 hasters that have flying. If you flash it back on one turn, because assumingly you're going to have 4 mana the turn that you cast Battledriver, and then turn 5 you can maybe Lingering Souls and flash it back. That's 12 damage coming at your opponent, and that's a pretty powerful effect. Again, I don't know. This is kind of one of the cards where at first glance I thought it looked powerful. I think it has better late game than a Hellrider does. But obviously that puts it in a different type of deck than Hellrider. So in cube it might replace my Hellrider, but probably not. I don't see this getting into my cube. In limited, again, it's not necessarily a bomb, but it's still solid and it's worth taking high. And again, since it doesn't have haste itself, it's not. I don't know. If you have a super aggressive deck, its impact might be minimal if it comes down on turn 4, because you may not have another creature that can get through to cast that the haste is going to be relevant. If you're super aggressive, it depends on your deck. Obviously, it's a solid 4-drop though, in limited. With him, I don't think his card is going to be that expensive, especially to it was a promo for the Duels of the Planeswalkers for the PlayStation 3 version of it, so there's already, the market's a little bit saturated with it already. I think the promo's selling for around $4 or $5 on eBay right now, so I don't think it's an expensive card, but I think it's probably always going to be maybe like a $2 or $3 card at most, so it's pretty safe to pick it up early if you're brewing with it. My 3rd card is Scavengin Ooze. Just obviously we've seen the impact of this card in Legacy. I'm sure a lot of you that do Cube have used it, have seen it in Cube. It's a pretty good card in Cube. It's going to have a bigger impact in Modern and Standard, but in Standard it's still solid. It kind of hoses Snapcaster and Reanimator, and while it's on the board and it's doing that, it's also growing into a threat. It's just a great card. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's a 2/2 for green 1. You can pay a green and exile a card from a graveyard, and if it's a creature card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Scavengin Ooze and gain a life. So it's just for something that looks so simple. It's a grizzly bear with a really good ability that does a lot of damage to a lot of decks. Again, in limited or in standard, the green decks right now, I don't necessarily know if they'll use it too much, so I think it's going to have a bigger standard in Modern. Like, it's probably not going to make its way into Blitz, maybe other than like a sideboard type thing, but yeah, it's just a really good card. Financially with this card, it's right now it was also a promo with the Duels of the Planeswalker for a ton of platforms. I got mine through Steam, and it was also iPod and Android devices. I think any of those devices, if you buy it, if you buy Duels of the Planeswalkers 2014, you get a promo code that you can redeem for this card that comes with a couple commons and uncommons in a pack. So I recently actually purchased one on eBay because I didn't want to open my pack, and I think I got all 3 promos for $17.50 total, and Scavengin Ooze is selling for around $12 right now by itself, so I got a pretty good deal on that. But I think it's going to be saturated at the beginning. I would pick up playsets early though. It's going to stay steady because it's used in multiple formats. and I would say it's probably going to be at least a $10 card, and then it possibly could see a nice hike, but you're not going to get any cheaper probably than $10, maybe $8 to $10. So out the gate, if that's what it is and you're planning on using it in decks, get your playset then. For limited, I guess I didn't cover that, but it's good. It's a grizzly bear with a relevant ability, but a little bit less relevant, I guess, than limited. But probably pick one in most cases just because of the value. Especially if it ends up being around a $15 or $20 card, like it's possible. But honestly, if I was in a serious environment, not playing maybe at a F&M or with my friends, I would take it, pick one, obviously, in those situations. But if I was in a more serious tournament, I probably wouldn't take it over good removal first pick, like especially if like there's a Doomblade or Pacifism in there. I would take those over it. But in most cases, it's a pretty solid pick. It's going to be a high pick. It's a good 2-drop that has a good ability, so that's always good and limited. My number 2 card is Lifebane Zombie. I think I have that right. But it's a 2 black and 1 cast. It's a 3/1 Intimidate, and whenever it comes into play, you look at your opponent's hand and exile a green or white card. I think this card is amazing, and especially in Constructed right now, I think it's way better than Sin Collector in most cases. And this card could have impacts in multiple formats, but especially in Standard right now, think of all the cards that gets. I mean, that gets the Sphinx's Revelations, it gets Thrag Tusks, it gets, you know, well, I guess the Burning Tree would have come down before then, but, you know, against Izzet Blitz, it gets some of their good cards, it gets Donry Rod, it gets, you know, Garruk Primal Hunter. There's a ton of cards that it can take care of in a lot of the relevant decks in Standard right now. But I think it has such an impact on the game, and it has so much value to it. I mean, honestly, you're getting a hand destruction card that comes down as a 3/1 body that's an evasive creature, and it's in a relevant tribe because it's a zombie. I think that this card, I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks this card's great. I really haven't been looking at any speculation, but I seriously think if this card comes out at like $4 or $5, I would invest in it heavily, and I would get my playsets early. It's just a fantastic card. It's probably the best control card, I think, in the set, personally. I could be wrong with this, though. This is one of those cards that maybe its restriction on white and green won't make it as playable as I think it is. But I mean, even if you just bring it down on turn 3 and you can't exile a card from their hand that's green or white, you are getting to look at their hand, and you're getting an evasive 3/1 creature down on the board, which is relevant. And I think it's a really good card. It's good in the mirror, like an Esper mirror. And I think it's better than Sin Collector in most cases. So I think that card is going to see maybe not a lot of play pre-rotation, but post-rotation, I think it's going to be really good. And pre-rotation, if it's a $4 or $5 card, I would pick up at least a playset of it. And then we're going to come to my number 1 card. This may sound strange to a lot of people, but the reason why it's number 1 on my list, it's a card that I've been brewing with ever since I read it, and I am going to have a video up soon, hopefully before the pre-release, about a shell that I'm putting this card in that I think is going to be pretty dominant Standard. This is a card I don't think a lot of people look at and think that it's super powerful. I think its only real impact, though, is in Constructed. I don't think it's a very good limited card, but it's Angelic Accord. Angelic Accord costs 1 white and 3 colorless, and it's an enchantment. And the enchantment says at the end of every end step, if you gain 4 life that turn, you can put a 4/4 angel token in play with flying. I don't know. This again is one of the cards where it may look a little bit sweeter to me than it actually is, and I really want to get it and play test with it before the verdict's out on it. But I think this card currently in Standard has a chance to be pretty insane. You can put this down on turn 3, like if you're playing with Mana Dorks, it can come down turn 3, turn 4 into Thrag Tusk, and Thrag Tusk at that point is basically gain 5 life, get a 5/3, and at the end of the turn make a 4/4 angel token. I think cards like Trustani, once you get it to go off once, Trustani can keep copying that angel to make more angels and more angels. And I just feel like this card is the card that the do nothing life gain decks have been waiting for as their finisher. I don't think it's going to see any cube play unless you have heavily you know, synergized life gain. Unlimited is pretty bad too. It's probably going to be a card that you get past a lot, last a lot of, even though it isn't uncommon. It's kind of going to be narrow and hard to pull off, but I think in current standard it's really, really good, and it's, if I can get my hands on 4 of them before or on Friday of the launch, I'm definitely going to be playing in an F&M. So those are my 10 cards, and I really thank Rogue Deck Builders for letting me do this. And if you want to discuss any of the cards, or you think I made some mistakes, or if I maybe messed up on what I thought some of the cards do, again, I just want to say that this wasn't a thorough. This wasn't thorough. This was kind of just like the first 10 cards that grabbed me looking through the spoiler. I haven't had a ton of time to look over the cards, but these are the cards that I immediately started brewing with. So agree or disagree, put it down in the description. I again want to thank Rogue Deck Builder for letting me do this. Thanks a lot.